Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about specifically the different channels of game masters there are, and what is the best way to play tabletop role-playing games. So one of the themes I've seen. So I do watch quite a few Dungeons and Dragons tabletop role. Actually, I would say I watch on YouTube a lot of tabletop role-playing game commentators. This includes Nerdarchy, Dawnforge Cast, Fistful of Dice. Those are the big ones. There's definitely others. But between I've started watching 70S System, DMG Info. So that's 4 different streams, and these guys do multiple videos every week. And one of the themes I've seen is there's this major theme that goes through all of them, and that is you can't play tabletop role-playing games wrong. Oh, let me not forget Runeslinger. Brilliant. One of the best out there. Really, really brilliant guy. Lewis Porter Jr. Yeah, I'd forgotten a few. Sorry. Okay. So one of the themes I see across many of them, if not all of them, is you can't play tabletop role-playing games wrong. Everybody's got their own table, and it's this very tolerant view, right? And I just fundamentally disagree with this. I actually think I think the vast majority of people are playing tabletop role-playing games wrong. And there have been times in my tabletop role-playing game, hobby that I've spent playing the game wrong, without a doubt, right? And that's one of the reasons why I listen, is I'm like, how do I do this right? And so I actually think it's kind of hard to play tabletop role-playing games right. And so with that, one of the things I realized is I get frustrated when I hear this advice, because I'm like, there's tons of people out there doing the wrong thing, and you're saying, hey, it's okay, do whatever you want. I just don't feel that way, right? Like, to me, when I'm listening, it's like if you had asked Picasso, how do you paint, right? And he said, I really feel he would say, yeah, you can paint wrong, right? Like, and to me, tabletop role-playing games are high art. They are Americana. They are an art platform. So you can absolutely do it wrong, right? And I have a desire to do it right? And also I believe that in many ways I've found a path to doing it right. And that's one of the things I want to share, right? So one of the reasons why everybody's saying this is they're trying to speak to all the game masters at once and not exclude any, right? And so when I thought about the game masters that are out there, I believe all game masters fall into 4 brackets. And I have created these brackets. I'm going to name them now, okay? Game masters fall into the following brackets. Kitcheners, the word kitchen with ER at the end. Kitcheners, groupers, radiators, and preservers, right? And actually, I think as far as being a game master in the right way, running a tabletop role-playing game in the right way, it goes from Kitchener to grouper to radiator to preserver in that order. And you get more right the higher up that ladder you go, okay? So what are these terms? What is a Kitchener? A Kitchener is someone who plays at their kitchen table, and they like being the game master, and they like being essentially the god of a world. Because that's really what when you are very new to game mastering, and if you have a very shallow understanding of the word game master, that's what you are. You in almost any tabletop role-playing game, you could say, a comet falls out of the sky and crushes you. It does 2,500 D6 and you're dead. Yeah, like, done, right? It's unlimited power, right? That's a Kitchener. Kitcheners are guys and gals who pull people together, and they are enjoying, just playing at their kitchen table, having 4 or 5 people around them, hoping for a story, but really, usually what's happening is they're inflicted to that game master's power trip, okay? That is a game master who likes the tabletop role-playing game to be about them telling people what happens to their characters. They are the absolute. So there's one excuse for being a Kitchener. If you are in junior high and you just found a Dungeons & Dragons book on the Barnes & Noble shelf, you get 6 months to maybe 18 months of being a Kitchener, right? That's totally okay. And I really suspect I was that for probably 2 or 3 years, and so that, and that's okay. You could be a Kitchener if then you grow into a grouper, and then you grow into a radiator, and then you grow into a preserver, okay? What is a grouper? A grouper is a game master who has mastered the game and now understands that I want to tell a tabletop role-playing game for my group of players, right? And they're saying, okay, I really want to tell a great story where all the players are engaged. It's a fun story. Everybody enjoys listening to it. Everybody gets to do something cool. All my players get to do something cool. And I want this to be a great game for me and a great game for every single player who sits at that table. Okay? Groupers are great. I love groupers, right? They are very low on the totem pole, okay? And it's I actually think there's a problem with being a grouper. I think it would be fine to be a grouper if it was 1980 or 1990, but it is 2016, and so I really feel at this point groupers are detrimental to the hobby. Okay, what is and I think you'll understand that when I explain radiator and preserver. What is a radiator? A radiator, okay, they are a grouper. They have all the aspects of a grouper, and in addition to being a grouper, they are radiating the hobby, right, of tabletop role-playing games out and gaining goodwill for the game from the world, from non-players, from people who are out there and are just who are not part of the tabletop role-playing game community. So what do I mean by that, right? Well, the biggest thing is it is 2016, and it blows my mind that I have to go this far, but I realized this for the last 3 years, probably 5 years. If I'm rolling dice, I am rolling camera, right? So it's so easy to set up a webcam. It's so easy to throw a mic on the table and do a podcast or do a YouTube, right? That if you're a grouper and you have all the aspects of a grouper, and then you are sending your game out to the world on YouTube, on Twitch, on Stitcher, and on iTunes, right? Either as audio or video, you are gaining. Your game is giving joy beyond your players. You are radiating that game out, and that has helped. Things like Stranger Things just started. This was a multi-million-dollar project by Netflix, and it started with kids playing Dungeons & Dragons, right? Dungeons & Dragons is starting to reach people in the mass culture. It hasn't gotten approval in the mass culture, but its reach is reaching into the mass culture, right? That's because of radiators. That's because of guys and gals out there who say it's not enough to give a great story for 5 players at my table. I want to give joy through this story, through this art, to the world, right? That's new. That's maybe 10 or 15 years old, you know what I mean? Probably 10 max, right? That's huge. That is a major step forward. Radiators are great, extremely good for the hobby, okay? What is a preserver? A preserver is a grouper and a radiator and more, okay? So they have all the aspects of a grouper, they have all the aspects of a radiator, and on top of that, they are looking at tabletop role-playing games from the perspective of preservation. They are saying, they understand, right, that Dungeons & Dragons is really still in its infancy. It's 40 years old. That's not that long. That's a few decades. Print, it is a print medium, right? Dungeons & Dragons, the standard bearer for all tabletop role-playing games, every single edition has always been a print book. Print is under threat of death. Print is dying, right? The medium that our game is attached to is fundamentally bolted to print, which is a dying form. It's a dying distribution model, right? So preservationists understand all the things groupers do. They understand all the things radiators understand. And then in addition to that, they're saying, I care about this hobby, right? And I care about it so much that I don't want to play with the same people all the time. I want to build new game masters. I want to build entire communities connected to our community. And I want to make sure that tabletop role-playing games are around for centuries, decades, and centuries to come, right? Preserver, and the only way to do that is you have to look at the hobby and say, what does it take to make this game attractive to people who would genuinely not play it, to age groups who won't play it, to races that we haven't had, we don't have the same goodwill. So basically, tell the truth, tabletop role-playing games are not played in equal numbers among all races within the United States or even within the world, right? There's a dichotomy, right? And so a preserver is saying, I want tabletop role-playing games to not be 80 or 90%, played by males, by gender. I want everybody to come to the pool. I want to preserve this by growing it, right? And I want to make sure that when it needs to be detached from print, it is detached from print, and that all the things we love remain, right? Or as much as possible remain. And so the preserver is the game master. The preserver is the game master who is tabletop role-playing game doing tabletop role-playing games the right way. That is the right way. That is the correct path, right? Unfortunately, I'm not sure there's more than 500 preservers in the world. I really think there might be 500 game masters in the world who think of the game in those terms, right? Now the good thing is they're all radiators. So those 500 guys and gals are out there, and they're showing the world through YouTube and through through Twitch and through Stitcher and through SoundCloud and through iTunes. They're showing the world how to do it, right? So that's good. That's really good. But so I realized why I was getting frustrated with hearing, oh, you can't play, tabletop role-playing games wrong. It's because commenters on tabletop role-playing games don't understand the differences between what types of game masters there are. There are Kitcheners, there are groupers, there are radiators, there are preservers, right? And one of the things that frustrates me is we can encourage groupers, we can encourage groupers and radiators and preservers. No one should encourage Kitcheners. They hurt the hobby, right? If you're past your first 18 months of play and you're still a Kitchener, you are subjecting 4 to 6 players every week to your nonsense. And that's wrong, right? And I really don't want to see that stuff happen. And if you've been in the tabletop role-playing community, you've heard these tales, just like complete control freaks who are out there who are really playing the game wrong, and that's and I really don't see. And so when you say there's no wrong way to play a role player game, you are feeding the beast. You are feeding the Kitchener. You're feeding the people out there who are abusing the hobby. And really, if it was just them, if you play tabletop role playing games by yourself, I wouldn't mind. But there are players that go into these Kitchener games and they never come out. They never, they never come back to the hobby, and that is upset to me. I have heard people on podcasts and even on television talking about how they tried, role playing games. Their first experience was terrible, and they've never tried it again. It's common. It definitely happens. So you definitely can play role playing games in the wrong way, The right way is to be a preserver. If you are on the journey, right? If you're a Kitchener and you've been playing for less than 18 months, if you're a grouper or if you're a radiator, right? And you're on the path to being a preserver, then you're doing the right thing. You're playing the game the right way, okay? But if you're a grouper and you want to remain a grouper, I think that's the wrong way to play. And the reason why is I care so deeply about this hobby that I don't want you trapping players behind your game, right? And so that's an issue to me. So one, I do want to thank all the guys out there, the guys and gals out there who are doing these tabletop role-playing comments, because it really makes me think, what does it take to run a tabletop role-playing game the right way? And I kind of had fun. I had a lot of fun coming up with these groupings, and I think they really are the groupings of where people fall. And so I just wanted to throw that out there and let you guys know what I was thinking. And as always, I know my videos are long sometimes. So if any of you, so for the people who are out there who are listening to these, and you get to the end of my really long videos, I really appreciate it. So because I am 100% aware that most YouTube videos need to be 3 minutes long, and I break that rule constantly. So if you're out there and you're listening, thanks for your time and attention, and thanks for listening about Kitcheners, groupers, radiators, and preservers. And I would encourage everybody, go up that chain, become a preserver. Take care.